Welcome to the Excellent Life Podcast, a podcast where you are inspired, motivated, and challenged to live a life of excellence. On the show, I will cover topics like created for excellence, keys to living an excellent life, and living your very best life. My special guests will also share from their wealth of experience the principles for living an excellent life. I'm your host, Bola Mateloko, and I'm so excited to be with you today. Welcome to episode 11 of the Excellent Life Podcast. I am your host, Bola Mateloko, and I'm super excited and delighted to be with you today. The topic for today's show is achieving excellence in governance. And I have a super special guest on the show today to join me in this discussion. Pastor Itwa Ighodalo is a pastor, an accountant, a thinker, a social reformer, and a writer. He attended the prestigious King's College, Lagos, the International School, University of Ibadan, and obtained a BSc Combined Honors degree in Economics and Accounting in 1982 from the University of Hull, England. He qualified as a chartered accountant in July of 1986 and attended a business management course at the Harvard Business School, Boston in 2011. He commenced his professional career in September of 1982 at PricewaterhouseCoopers, now PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, and later founded Ighodalo and Company, a professional public accounting firm in January of 1987. In October 2004, Ighodalo and Company merged with three other firms to form SIAO RSM Nigeria, becoming arguably the fifth largest accounting practice in Nigeria today. Pastor Itwa is a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Nigeria and also a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Taxation Nigeria. He's a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, a member of the American Society of Industrial Security, and a member of the American Institute of Management. He has also sat on various government panels, state and federal, and has been an advisor / consultant to government at different levels since 1991. He's on the council of the Nigerian British Chamber of Commerce, the Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, and he's on the board of the National Council on Privatization. He's the pastor in charge of Trinity House, a non-denominational, free-flowing international Christian worship center. He was married to the late Ibidunni Itwa Ighodalo, and they were blessed with two wonderful children. Welcome to my significant other, none other than Pastor Itwa Ighodalo. You are so welcome to the Excellent Life Podcast.
Thank you, my significant. Thank you for all the time and all the trouble and all the energy and for this very great privilege. Thank you very much. I'm most grateful.
You are so very welcome. And I know it's going to be so very much worth it. So I'm really excited that we finally got to do this. So, Pastor Itwa, I know you are so passionate about governance, about good government. And so even as we start this discourse, my very first question to you is, how would you define excellence in government or in governance?
You know, there's a gentleman called Sheikh Al Maktoum, and he's the leader or the ruler of Dubai and the vice president of the UAE. He says a government's business or a president's business is making his people happy, making his people And he says that he goes all over the world looking for the best in class in the world, and he brings them to Dubai for the benefit of his people. And if you go to Dubai, you will see one of the safest, one of the most advanced, one of the prettiest places, and one of the places that has almost everything in the world.
And I will testify, yeah. I was just there in April, so.
Yeah, and they've done that in all of between 20 and 40 years. Well, so on the back of that, achieving excellence in governance is taking governance to a degree of best practice, taking governance to a degree of best practice in the best possible environment, in the best possible time. The ability to improve all the time with the highest and most current levels that is available to man. So you are able to take the rulership and the leadership and the service to people in the best environment with the best practices in the best possible time. It's a tough one, difficult to achieve, but it comes with consistency and with determination.
That was such an excellent description. So excellent. And it really leads to what I want to ask you next, which I think you touched on at the end of it. I know you said it's difficult, but what is the downside, though, of not having excellent government? So we've talked about what excellent government is. So what is the downside of not having it?
Well, the first downside is a set of frustrated people. Absolutely. And in a lot of places where you do not have excellence or an excellent government, you see a lot of frustrated people. Frustration leads to a higher incidence of disruption, violence, discontentment, and eventually, if available to the people, an overthrow either politically or violently of that same government. So eventually the government is not able to achieve a certain level of excellence or provide a certain level of service for the people. The government will lose its governance because the people will be unhappy, they'll be discontented, they'll be frustrated, they'll be angry, they'll be tired, they'll be fed up, and they will, of course, call for a change in government. Now, that process sometimes takes a while because people tend to be quite accommodating, trusting, docile, and hopeful. But eventually, like the Arab Spring that happened in Egypt and in Israel, in the eastern part of the world a few years ago, it will happen. There's always a repercussion. And a repercussion from the people eventually. It might take a while, but it happened in the USSR, it happened in Russia, it happened even in France with the Bolshevik, in Russia with the Bolshevik, it happened in Russia recently with the breakdown of communism, it happened in France with the French Revolution, it happened in Britain, and I hope it will happen in a few more places so that we can really have an excellent government.
Oh, wow. It's so interesting as I was listening to you outline, the dangers of not having good government and, the response of people to, bad governance or bad government, as it were. Do the people also have a role to play, though, in establishing good governance?
Well, absolutely. Governance does not happen in vacuum or all by itself. Yeah. The people who govern the people come out of the people, and most of the time, either by coercion or by assertion, the people accept the people who govern them, even if only temporarily. Looking from a spiritual perspective, the Bible says in the book of Samuel, I think 2 Samuel, it's about the 6th chapter or so, that the people went to David to make him king. It was the people who went to David and they said, David, come and be our king. Because even when Saul was our king, it was you, David, that was leading the people in battle and protecting us and being there for us. And even the Saul himself, the people gathered around together at that time, and they chose and agreed that Saul would be their king. And if you read the Bible very well, Moses had a hard time convincing the people that he was available to lead them. And they said, who are you and where are you coming from? You ran away from
qualification.
And now you are coming back to say this thing. He says, well, God sent me. He says, who is this God? He says, I am the I am that I am. It's okay, prove to us that God sent you. And God says, you know what, throw your rod on the ground, and it became a snake, and then pick it up by the tail, and it became a rod again. Then they said, okay, we think that God is with you. Okay, so what do you want us to do? He says, well, be out of this wilderness. So the people, one way
there
or
must
the other.
be a buy-in. What I hear you saying is that there must be a buy-in by the people for government to be successful. So if the people themselves don't buy into the leaders and the government, then will it be successral?
It cannot be. It cannot be. It's like currency. We agree that this currency is a dollar, or this currency is a naira, because we all agree. The minute we say this is no longer a currency, it becomes a worthless piece of paper. So people buy into leadership. They accept leadership for one way or the other for the time that it's in leadership. But the minute they say, no more, you are no longer our leader, then the matter is over. So all the respect that they give, all the love they give, all the attention they give is because they have either been forced to, or they have been coerced to, or they have been persuaded, or they decided that, okay, let this person be our leader for this moment. Now, these days, you have things like constitution, you have things like the laws of the land, you have things like democratic practices and so on and so forth that we all have agreed to, that these are the laws by which we are bound to. I remember when Buhari became president and Goodluck Jonathan had to leave. I remember being at the Eagle Square that day, and we were following the Constitution. So Jonathan came in with a convoy as president. A big convoy. He came in as president. He went to the podium, gave Buhari Quran to swear. Buhari swore on the Quran. Jonathan went back to his seat, and he escaped in one jeep out of that Eagle Square. Because the people by constitution had now said, Jonathan, you are no longer...
And that's the beauty of democracy. That's the beauty of democracy, the ability to transfer power smoothly and effectively. I still want to stay on the people, though, because, you know, many times when things are not going well in any nation, you know, people are always quick to point their hands at the people in government. But you see, I always say that even after we buy into whoever is in government, we still have a role to play, because we have a role to play in that there are things we can do to support the government to make sure that government runs effectively. You know, you talked about the Constitution. The Constitution has roles and responsibilities, not just for those who govern, but for those who are governed. So I want you to speak to that, because I know a lot of people will probably listen to this podcast and think, oh, it's all about everything about good governance, excellent governance, just rest with the people that are governing. But I always say that it takes the people as well as the leaders for us to have excellent governance and government. So.
Well, the good thing about people is that they usually go in the direction in which they are persuaded or directed to go. The people, they're like sheep. They are ready to follow, and they're ready to behave. That is why you see in Nigeria airports, people behave one way. The same people, when they get to Heathrow or Newark Airport, they behave a different way. Because
absolutely.
The leadership in both areas are slightly different. The leadership in Newark or in Dulles have said this is the way we do things. And if you don't do things this way, there's quick consequence to your not doing things this way. But in Murtala Muhammad or wherever, the consequences are not evident. So people try the system and they get away with it. So people are quite ready to be led and they're ready to cooperate. So getting the cooperation of people is not as difficult as it seems, but they just want to know. So to get the people to work with government, you need 3 or 4 things. Number 1, information. The people need to be well informed as to what they need to do. Number 2, education and enlightenment. When people are enlightened to some degree and they know why they're doing things, it's easy for them to do it. And then number 3, benefit to them doing the things that they're doing. And then number 4, consequences for not doing what they are doing. Both direct consequences and subsequent consequences as to what the breakdown of law and order will result.
And I totally agree with you. It's so interesting. I was doing an IG live just, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about this same thing that we're talking about how it seems like Nigerians were bipolar, as it were. When we're in Nigeria, there's the way we behave, and then when we leave the country, there's the way we behave. But the other thing that I want to talk to you about is that you're a pastor, and you also have passion for government. Is there a role that the church or religion plays in good governance or government?
Very, very good question. And, anybody who knows me will hear me say that the problem with Nigeria or the church is largely responsible for where Nigeria is today. And there's many reasons for that. And the role that the church has to play in governance is number 1. The church is the one that's supposed to hear from God and tell the government what God is saying by way of advice. Okay, it was Nathan that heard from God and told David what the problem was. In the very Old Testament, both the government and the church were one and the same. Yes. You had judges. So Moses and Aaron will hear from God and tell the people. That's what you call theocracy. Now, when you had kings, you separated the kings from the priests or the prophets. The kings would govern, but they would listen to what the prophet is about to say. So Saul could never offer a sacrifice unless Samuel was there to hear from God. So there's a bit of a separation. So that's the first role of the church or the people who hear from God. The second role for them is to teach the people what good is from bad according to the laws of God. So the church is the grooming ground for capacity for leadership. The people who come into leadership after their parents should have been taught in the church and then taught in the school. So the church produces the good kind of people that will lead. So Samuel anointed David and taught him the ways of God so that he could become a good leader. The third thing the church is supposed to do is to support government in areas where government is not able to do everything. For example, the British and the Anglicans and the Catholics did it very well with schools, with hospitals, with education. So the fourth role of the church in government, aside from, first of all, giving government what God is saying, producing the leaders that government needs, and so on and so forth. The fourth role of the church in governance is to criticize, government and tell government where it has gone wrong or to commend them when they have done right. So the first is to hear from God and tell government. The second is to act as a training ground for people to go into governance and to encourage its people to go into governance and be good government people. The third is to support government in terms of schools, agriculture, business, hospitals, and so on and so forth. Support government, work as a partner with government in building up the economy. And then the fourth is to act as a critic or a commender of government, to be that who commends government as to whether it's doing well or it is not doing well, to give government a score mark. So, David, you are the man that slept with Bathsheba and destroyed her husband, and therefore you have caused a problem in Israel. So you need to repent. Or, David, are you not the one who has been taking Israel in and out, and God is happy with you? Go and build the temple because God has said you can do it. Or, no, David, God has changed his mind. Don't build this temple. Let Solomon build it. So the fourth role of church is to speak truth to power, to be able to tell them.
I love that. I love that.
Wrong. If church is not able to speak truth to power, then there is a problem, because nobody else has the real strength and depth to do it like the church can, because we assume they heard from God.
You know, it's so interesting you say that, because in the US, you know, they always talk about how there should be a separation between church and state. You know, so when I hear this, your perspective now, which I honestly buy into, and I think that one of the problems we have in the US or other developed nations is this inability to be able to create a check and a balance, as it were, where the church, as you said, can come in and be able to be a check and a balance to government. So there's no absolute power of government, as it were. So let me ask you, we've talked about so many things. So what, in your own opinion, is a starting place or the steps that we can take if we're at a place where we say, okay, we don't have good government, we don't have good governance? What are the building blocks that we can start to put together now to say we want to establish good government or good governance?
Are you talking about what the individual can do, or
I mean, as the individuals, whether be the individuals, whether the nation or the nation, because we have established that in order for there to be good government, it's supposed to be a joint collaboration between individuals and government. So let's say, okay, today we make up our mind, we decide we want to start to establish excellent and good governance. What are the building blocks or the steps that we take to be able to achieve that goal?
If you want to talk specifically about Nigeria,
we don't want to talk specifically about Nigeria. We are a global podcast, so we want to talk, globally, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's any part of the world. How do we go about establishing good government, excellent government?
What it is that hopefully there will be a hardcore of people who understand what good governance is. That's the first thing that is needed in that environment, because there's some environments where people don't even understand what good governance is. So we hope that there is a hardcore of people who understand what good governance is. So, for example, in Singapore, a man called Lee Kuan Yew, God gave him the ability to understand what good governance was. When you went into China, a few people got together after they had been oppressed by the British, and they said, never again will China go through this kind of oppression. Let us come together and do what is good for ourselves. Like I said, in Dubai, you have Sheikh Al Maktoum, who has risen up. In fact, it was his grandfather and then his father who started to establish the foundations for what good governance is. And of course, you had the British Revolution in them days where people came up and said, we can do things better. So what you need is, first of all, a class of people who understand what good governance is. The second is that class of people need boldness, commitment, unity, almost determining to lose their lives for this, like Nelson Mandela was one such person in South Africa. He says, it's an ideal that I hope to live to see, but it's an ideal that I'm prepared to die for.
Yes, absolutely.
Same thing in the US, Martin Luther King Jr. You need people like that whose voices are loud and who can shepherd and push the people together in a certain direction. Those are the two critical elements that you need. When they are able to avail themselves, then you need to be able to inform the people. So conversations like this are good. Conversations in the press are good. And that is why over the last few years, I've been a bit more vocal so that we can begin to inform people. I'm not being vocal for myself. I'm trying to inform people that we can do things a little bit better. So it is information and knowledge. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge, that will begin to inform people and galvanize them towards a collective decision that we must have good governance. We must ensure that these are the kinds of people we want, and these are the kinds of institutions we want. So there must be then that collective agreement amongst all the people that this is the way we want to go. And once they agree, they will go that way.
Okay, so my final question I want to ask you is that, because we have a lot of individuals listening, what is the role? What can we do? Like if I say to you, okay, I'm interested in promoting good governance. I'm so encouraged by what you have said. So what should be my mindset as a person towards trying to make sure that I play my part in making sure that there is good governance, whether I'm in Nigeria, whether I'm in the US, whether I'm in Dubai? What is the role that I personally have to play to ensure that that happens?
First of all, they must be convinced within themselves that they want to make this sacrifice, because it is a lot of sacrifice to want to play this role, because you will get a lot of flack all over the place and you may be misunderstood. Number two, they must also be informed. You just don't go talking up and down when you don't understand what the issues are in the environment in which you are talking. So better be informed as to what is good governance. What is acceptable in Saudi Arabia may not be acceptable in Canada, may not be acceptable in Australia, may not be acceptable in Kuala Lumpur. So you must understand and you must be informed, you must be educated. But one thing I can tell you clearly is that the main yardstick is the Bible. The Bible can never fail. If you go by the principles of the Bible, and most of the democracies and the constitutions of the world, of Britain, of America, of Sweden, of Europe, even of Dubai itself, is based fundamentally on the teachings of the Bible, both the Old and to some extent the New Testament, because the Quran and the Bible have similar doctrines. It's just interpretation that is the problem, because it's the same story. The Torah and the Quran and the Old Testament, they are all practically the same story, okay? So those principles are important, and they basically never fail. And then the fourth, or the third or the fourth, is to determine what role he or she to play in this good governance business, because it's such a wide spectrum, and it might not be possible for one person or a group to do everything. Okay, so they must determine what role they want to play. And then number 5, they must be open to collaboration with other people. People are not open to collaboration, thinking that they are the only ones. And some churches, even all over the world, have made that mistake also, thinking that they are the only ones. But you must be open to collaboration. God does not create islands. So when you are open to collaboration and working together, it makes you this thing. But then the most important thing is to never give up. Never give up.
I love that.
Never give up.
I love that. Just like me and you, we are collaborating now.
Collaborating, and we're forming good governance.
Yes.
To to Singapore, to Dubai, to South Africa.
Yes. Such a great conversation. This has been such a great conversation. And I can really tell that you have the passion for this and you were the right person to talk about this with. I am so grateful for your time, and always a pleasure to spend time with you. So thank you, Pastor Itwa, for coming on the Excellent Life podcast. And I know my viewers are going to be enormously blessed by all that we have discussed. So thank you. God bless you. And we will have another conversation if time permits us at some other time. Thank you. God bless you. As I close the show today, I want to leave you with the following positive affirmations. Number 1, you are confident and able to handle any obstacle thrown in front of you. Number 2, your presence is your power. Number 3, you are superior to negative thoughts and low actions. Number 4, you treat others with respect and appreciate their individuality. Number 5, you have the power to create positive change. Number 6, your ability to conquer your challenges is limitless and your potential to succeed is infinite. You are in the process of becoming the best version of yourself. Number 8, you are grateful to learn from new experiences, even if you struggle. Number 9, you are focused and persistent. Number 10, you are proud of yourself and all that you have accomplished. On the next episode of the Excellent Life podcast, I'll be discussing the topic excelling in prayer. Bye for now, and God bless you. Thanks for joining me this week on the Excellent Life podcast. I trust that you have been inspired by the show today. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Bola Mataloko, the Excellent Life Coach. And be sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes so you never miss an episode. If you love the show, please leave a rating on iTunes so that I can continue to bring you many more life-changing episodes. Thank you for listening, and I will be with you in 2 weeks for another inspiring episode. Till then, remember, it is possible to live your very best life.